Hi, welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at Tableau dashboards. These are single interfaces consisting of two or more sheets in one field together that allow users to view all the information for their organization in one single interface. And the sheets in Tableau can be configured so that data selected in one can be used to filter data displayed in another. Let's look at an example. First, we'll connect to our Netflix Originals dataset, which we've worked with before. And I'm going to create a new sheet for this, in which I will display in this new sheet, which I'm going to rename. I'm going to display data for average scores for each combination of genre and language. As you've seen before, we can simply drag the individual fields from our table into the left-hand side here. We have a breakdown of genres. If I also add language just to the right of that, I have to push it down here so that they both appear in rows. What I see is a breakdown of the combinations of genre and language. So I'll get one row in my output for each combination of genre and language. What I want to display in my column is the average score. So I'm going to take the IMDb score, put that up in columns. Notice by default when I drag it up here, it's going to calculate the average, the sum, excuse me, not the average, but rather the sum of that score, that aggregate value. Now, that's nice, but what we actually wanted was the average. So instead of the sum, I can mouse over and select this little down triangle to change my measure from sum to average. And now I get, on a scale of 0 to 10, the average IMDb score for all the records in each combination of genre and language. As you can see, it's in a range from 0 to 10, some very low, some very high. Now I'm going to create a second sheet, and I can do that clicking the New Sheet button. I'll rename this one to Total Shows by Genre. And as we did before, I will drag genre into my left-hand side, a number for one genre per row. And in the column, I will calculate what I want is the total number of rows for each genre. So, under Netflix Originals CSV, drag this count calculation, and I get a nice breakdown on a scale of 0 to, I think, 170 of the total number of titles in that genre. That's great. So now we have two sheets, both of which use genre for at least part of their breakdown. I'm going to use both of these to create a new dashboard. Now if you look at the bottom here, there are little plus signs next to these three icons. The first one is New Worksheet. The second one will allow us to create a new dashboard. The other way to do this is to go to Dashboard on the menu and click New. Either of these does the same thing. And I wind up with this new form with a dashboard that says Drop Sheets Here. And on the left here, you'll notice the two sheets I created earlier are available by name. And if I mouse over them, I can get a little preview to see what they look like. So, if I want to create a dashboard consisting of two or more sheets, all I have to do here is drag each of these sheets over into the dashboard area and release. Now I have the average score by genre and language. I'm going to drag the second one over, and as I do this, you'll notice I get a docking interface that allows me to drop this second one either on the left, splitting it left-right, the bottom, splitting it top-bottom. Let's do top-bottom just for now. And you can see both of the forms at the same time. These are docking, and when you click on one of them, you'll notice there's a little bar at the top which when you mouse over gives you the icon for move, and I can drag and re-dock these in whatever combination or whatever pattern I choose, which is nice. So I'm going to put them side by side for now. Now it's worth noting that the sheets being accessed in the dashboard and the dashboard itself are connected in a way such that if I make changes to one, they will display in the other. For example, if I want my total shows by genre to be displayed instead of a bar graph like this, if I select the Show Me, the list of different types of visualizations, I change this one to Packed Bubbles over here in the sheet. When I go back to my dashboard, you'll see that change has been reflected here as well. Now at this point, the two visualizations, the two sheets, are completely independent. Whatever I do in one doesn't affect what I see in the other. There are some interesting effects here. If I click on one of the values, I get some options and a breakdown, a little bit of a summary about what this particular row represents. Come back to this later about what we can do with this. But as I say, there's no effect between the two. If I select data in one, it doesn't change the data displayed in the other. So let's change that. What I'd like to do is change it so that if I select a value over here in one of these bubbles, that it will filter the results in the other sheet so that only those selected genres will display, along with their corresponding languages and the individual records. For example, action has 3 rows here. What I'd like to be able to do is click action, wherever it is on this side, and have only these entries display. We can do this using something called actions. And in the Tableau dashboards, you can select dashboard from the menu and go down to actions, or Control-Shift-D if you're a keyboard shortcut person. And we get an option here for adding a new action. There are several different types of actions available in Tableau. We're going to talk about 2 of them today. The first one will be a simple filter. That will allow me to filter the results in one sheet based on what's selected in the other. I'm going to call this one, rename it to Genre Filter. And in this, I will select in my source sheets only the total shows by genre. That's the bubble graph on the right. And in the target, I'll select only the other sheet, average score by genre/language. And within clearing the selection, I'll choose Show All Values. Leave target filters to all fields. I'll click OK. And click OK, and now the action has been created. Let's see what happens when I click the thriller genre on the right-hand side. Notice there is now an option down here for genre filter. And if I click that, it applies that filter in the other sheet, so that now I can limit my results in the average score by genre/language to only the genre specified in the other sheet. If I click off of thriller, notice it resets the other sheet. Clicking comedy again gives me the option for genre filter, which I can click and limit my results to only the comedy genre entries, with each of the corresponding languages in that genre and their calculated totals. Now that's all good and well. I'm going to show you another type of action, and in this case it's a URL that allows us to pass values from a selection in one of our forms, one of our sheets, into a URL to open in a web page. Again, I'll go to Dashboard and Actions, and I'll create another new action. The type of action I'm going to create is Go to URL. The setup for this type of action is a little bit different. I'm going to rename this as Wikipedia entry for genre. I could type the word genre, but if I click this little triangle selection to the right, it gives me a list of the fields, including calculated values, that I can put into the name of this action. When I click genre, notice it's in brackets, or the less than, greater than sign. That means this is a tag that it will be dynamically replaced with whatever actual genre I'm selecting. I'm going to use this in the URL itself. First of all, I'm going to limit this to just the total shows by genre, so that when I click one of those genres, I'll get this option. And again, menu. By selecting Run Action on Menu, that gives me a link when I click on that value, instead of automatically opening it, which I for which I would click Select, so that when I click that, it would automatically redirect to the URL. But I'm going to give the choose the menu option, so that I will have the option to click on that if I choose. Now, the URL, the value we put under URL, is a stub. And it also has this triangle, which allows us to append or concatenate some of the values, any of the available values, to the URL itself. Now, the burden is on us to ensure that whatever resulting URL gets created actually exists and can be visible in a web browser. So there are two aspects of that. One is ensuring that the target website has the appropriate pages for each of the values. And I'm going to sort of cheat by using Wikipedia, because Wikipedia has entries for just about everything you can think of. The other way to ensure that this is going to be a functional link is to limit the values in your SQL or otherwise your calculation of this value, so that only the values coming back will be in the available set. If, for example, you're going to look at web pages for each of the 50 US states, then you can modify your SQL so that no matter what values there are in the table, you'll only get back that list of valid values in the SQL. But for now, I'm just going to tack this genre tag onto here, which will result in whatever the name of that genre is being added after the / in the Wikipedia URL. And we'll hope for the best. Let's try testing the link with this little button here. What you can't see is that it's just opened in a web browser window. By default, this will open these URLs in your web browser, your default Windows web browser. But that's not going to be visible in the dashboard itself. So what I'm going to do, what you didn't see was that test succeeded. I was able to open a web page from this. So I'm going to create this action, and I add it with the OK. And as I say, by default, those URLs will open in the default web browser for your system, but you also have the option of adding a browser into the dashboard itself. Now, the way you do that is simply by grabbing under the list of objects in the lower left hand here, grab web page, drag that onto your dashboard, and again, you get this docking interface that allows you to put the web page anywhere you like. I'm going to put it here at the bottom. And then when the form asked me for to edit URL, I left it blank. I'm just going to leave this as a blank web browser. And again, I can change where this appears in my docking by dragging this. I'm going to put it at the bottom so that it takes up the entire bottom. Well, I think the way to do that, I can move this one so that it appears only top left. And now my blank web browser takes up the bottom half of the screen. And the other two sheets are top, left, and right, respectively. Now, when I click again, one of the individual genre values, for example, romantic comedy, I get my previous option, my link for genre filter, which I can click now, and also a second link for Wikipedia entry for romantic comedy. As I said before, instead of the tag that said genre, I get the actual value for genre for the current selection. So Wikipedia entry for romantic comedy, if I click this, will now open in the browser within the dashboard itself. And if you saw the URL here, you would see literally the Wikipedia stub that I had before, / followed by the words romantic comedy with a space in between. And fortunately, as I say, Wikipedia has entries for just about everything. So whichever genre I select, I have a pretty good chance of the Wikipedia page coming up. There are a lot more options available here, but this covers the basics of creating a simple dashboard with multiple sheets and linking them so that you can filter data from one into the other.